John the Mouse. "40 years ago, the cargo from the wreck of the steamboat Bertrand was recovered from the mud of the Missouri River, which first had claimed her in 1865. In 2011, the river tried to take it back. Initially, the plan was to stay put. Huge efforts went into reinforcing and constructing dikes and levees to keep the river at bay. But the predicted height of the flooding was increasing, and the electric power to the visitor center could not be guaranteed. So at noon on Friday, June 10th, 2011, the decision was made: move the collection. But when? Where do you begin? What do you do first when your museum collection contains 250,000 objects? Some are which as delicate as glass, and some are sturdy as, well, steel. Well, first you prioritize which objects are more rare and which ought to go right away. Then you gather as many packing materials and rental trucks as you can get your hands on and send out a call for volunteers. You post a list of tasks, show the workers how to pack artifacts, assign them to workstations and the storage area, and tell them they only have a few days to get these objects to safety. The first thing to go were the boots. They were already in boxes and just needed padding to be ready to go. As thousands of boots went out, experts like the MWAC Karen Roberts packed delicate objects. Wooden packing crates also went out early as they were rare and fit nicely into modern movers' boxes. We drew most of our help from local students, firefighters, teachers, state of Iowa law enforcement officers, and refuge personnel sent from around the region. Ceramics such as these ale bottles from Holland are intensely strong, but they still needed individual padding and careful packaging. The loading dock was the center of our activity. Rental trucks lined up awaiting their load, even as more packing supplies were being delivered. On a few occasions, heavy lifting equipment could be used to move bulky things like steel cabinets, but mostly we relied on strong backs and willing hands. The Fish and Wildlife Region Director, Tom Mellis, came by to check on our efforts and was put to work packing cannonballs. Sometimes packing objects resulted in light-hearted moments. Most of the objects were individually wrapped in tissue or foam before carefully packed in a cardboard box. Before any boxes left the museum, they were marked with the location from which they were taken. Space for odd-shaped objects could pose a challenge to our eager packagers. At times, boxes had to be custom-made. James and Michael showed a remarkable talent for using every square inch of cargo space in the rented trucks. Our first temporary storage spot was provided by the good people of Omaha. There was a large meeting room that was not being used, and before we knew it, the available space at the Ford Center was filling up, but we had still lots of stuff to move. By Tuesday, June 14th, 20% of the collection had been packed and removed. A fresh influx of volunteers helped us to pick up the pace even further. Long hours and hard work were paying off, but would there be enough time? Our next challenge involved finding a second site to store our boxes. In desperation, we even wound up taking one of the truckloads to Lincoln, where the NPS allowed us to use their limited space. But when the manager of the warehouse in Omaha area learned of our predicament and graciously offered the use of his facility without charge. The offer of a controlled storage space came at the right time. The packing effort at the DeSoto was gaining momentum, and without missing a beat, the work continued and the trucks began to roll to their new destination. With thousands of square feet of storage secured, the truckloads of artifacts began to fill the warehouse. No real effort was made to organize a collection at this point, as time was the most important factor. Necessity is really the mother of all invention. Since the cabinets were too heavy to move, the drawers were removed and cocooned with a technique now forever known as Meister's wrapping. One team would hold a padded drawer while a second team would maneuver around them to stretch wrap plastic over and under the entire drawer. The final product was both protected and transportable. Thanks, James. Moving iron engine parts could sometimes be nerve-wracking. Metal textile drawers required some careful stacking. 100-year-old raincoats demanded the very special packing. As Friday, June 17th approached, the end was in sight. Hundreds of shelves and cabinets, once loaded with precious artifacts from the steamboat Bertrand, were standing empty. The big push was on to get all the objects out of the storage bays. Odd-shaped tools such as shovels had to be packed into handmade boxes before being transported to safety. Finally, at noon of Saturday, June 18th, 2011, the last load of the objects and museum supplies was packed into the last truck. 7 days of hard work had achieved the impossible. The Bertrand collection was safely out of harm's way, and the workers had good reason to smile. When the last truck pulled out and the last volunteer went home, an eerie silence settled over the storage bays. The shelves and cabinets were empty. The fury of activity that had descended so quickly on the museum had ebbed after just 1 week. However, the Missouri River could not be held back forever. In the end, it was forced its way through the levees. On June 24th, 2011, water poured into DeSoto and causing millions of dollars in damage. The flooding of the refuge reached record heights. For several weeks, the visitor center became an island, accessible only by boat. Water did not enter the upper floors, but the boiler room was submerged, and electrical power was lost for several months. Since then, the lake has returned to its pre-flood level, but it's uncertain when the collection will be returned to DeSoto. An aerial view of the visitor center complex before the flood event. Same view, summer 2011. A great deal of damage was suffered. There was tons of sand and silt were deposited. At DeSoto, roads were washed out and hiking trails destroyed. The refuges suffered damage to the fishing piers and buildings. After looking into various options, the decision was made to lease a space in the temporary warehouse, set up security environmental controls, and house the collection where until the time came to return to the visitor center at DeSoto. The objects had been stored at the Ford Center and the NPS were all brought to the warehouse so they could be housed together. To our relief, an inspection by an independent contractor revealed that the artifacts were not damaged during the evacuation. In the meantime, the collection is being sorted, inventoried, cataloged, photographed, and repackaged in anticipation of the day it will be brought back and put on display. Thank you for watching my video. I do have more for you to view. Just press on the button. And if you'd like to subscribe to stay up to date, you can push that button too.